Hi, and thank you for watching Missouri Viewpoints, the program dedicated to the civil and informed discussion of the political, social, and economic issues that affect us all. I'm Mike Ferguson, and once again, we're coming to you from the Hard Bean Cafe in downtown Grandview. Well, this week we begin our series of interviews with candidates for statewide and for federal office, and we're starting right here in Missouri's 5th Congressional District. Joining me is Jacob Turk, who is the Republican candidate for Congress. Jacob, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, Mike.
Okay, now as we get closer to election day, polls are showing that the economy is now the #1 concern amongst Americans. We've got gas prices going up, we've got the value of the dollar going down. Are we, as some pundits are saying, headed for a recession right now?
I certainly hope not. And if Congress will enact an economic stimulus package, I think that it could be a soft bounce instead of a hard recession. What folks have to remember is that a recession is 6 months of negative growth, and we haven't even had 1 month yet. So I like the forward thinking that's coming from our political leaders on this particular issue, that they're saying we need to do something, and we do, because those gas prices are high. We have the housing market slump that has hit us hard. And one of the things about the economy that I want folks to think about is we've been told it's a bad economy. And if you look, for the last 6 years, we've had an economic boom. And if we focus and say this economy is bad, then what we're going to come up with is bad public policy. Well, we need to look at and say, we have a good economy, but we do have folks that haven't been able to grab upon the prosperity in different localities. And we have some of those in the 5th District. So we need good public policy to address those pockets where folks are having a hard time right here in the 5th District.
Just a few days ago, the president has promoted a plan like 2001 to send tax rebates, that he's calling them, to inject spendable income into the economy. Do you agree with this proposal, and why?
I do agree with the proposal. As has been shown by past history, that when you give the folks their money back, the economy takes off. And we've had record federal revenues because of that. And any time that we can give the taxpayers their money back or let them keep their money, it's good for the country, it's good for the economy.
You mentioned the housing slump just a little bit ago as far as new home sales. Prices are down a little bit. The subprime mortgage crisis obviously is affecting the economy to the tune of billions of dollars. If you are elected to Congress, what approach would you take to dealing with the housing market and economic policy?
Well, we've got to be fair to all parties. We have to realize there's a shared responsibility. We have some folks that shouldn't have gotten the loans that they got. And we have to look at and see, was that their decision? Or were they sold a bill of goods by lenders who used predatory practices? And we have to be equitable in our solutions to these things. So it's going to take an approach that looks at the whole field, instead of just saying one party's at fault or the other party's at fault. It's not one size fits all. We're going to have to look on it as an individual basis, what individual companies did, and if they were out of line, the government needs to step in. One
of the areas where the president wants the government to step in is regarding the subprime bailout. Critics of this plan, especially the HUD subsidized portion of it, say this is taxpayers being forced to bail out people who signed up for loans they shouldn't have signed up for and couldn't afford. Is that a fair criticism?
It is a fair criticism as far as it goes. But again, you have to look at, now, is this somebody, a well-meaning consumer that walked in and then a lender said, oh yes, you can afford this, it's not a problem, understanding down the road that this person would flounder no matter what happened in our economy, no matter what happened in the housing market. At that point in time, then you have a shift of responsibility to the lender. If it's somebody that went in there knowing their finances and looked at this and said, you know, if things stay great for me, and I get a bunch of raises, and life's just really good, and the wind just blows in my direction all the time, now we have to look at that person and say, well, they made a bad decision.
Before we move on to other topics, when economic issues come up in debate for vote, if you are in Congress, what principles guide your actions and your votes?
I love that question, Mike. Thank you, because it lets me expound on where I come from in terms of I will make decisions based on principle and not political wins. And when it comes to economic decisions, I'm for free market, I'm for capitalism. Capitalism has risen more people out of poverty than any other system. Socialism's failed, communism's failed, but capitalism gives incentives and gives us the ability to help folks who have not been able to catch on to the prosperity of this economy that we have.
The other major issue, obviously, and I hate to call it other because I don't want to downgrade it, is the war in Iraq. You're a former Marine. How do you assess where we are in that war, and where should our military operations go from here?
Well, once a Marine, always a Marine. And I can tell you this is the subject that stirs me up, because we have politicians pontificating, grandstanding on this. They say, well, yeah, our troops have done great, and they've given a respite to the Iraqi politicians. Let's bring them home now. And the thing about it is that they're not thinking about at all is the men and women over there, they fought to liberate these people. And they have watched their comrades die in front of them. They've watched their friends die. They've watched them lose legs, limbs. This is sacred ground. Our blood has been spilled over there. And to just cede the field of combat to our enemies just flies in the face of honoring that sacrifice. And I'll fight against that. We are going to have bases there for a long time, just like we did in Germany and Japan after World War II, to give the civil government time to enact the changes that are necessary to keep that country safe from enemies from within and from without. And the Iraqi politicians are now starting to do that. They just passed a law that will let Ba'athists come back, low-level Ba'athists, that have the experience and the knowledge to make that government work. And that was one of the huge stumbling blocks, and they've now done it. And I find it ironic that politicians in our Congress, our current representative, criticizing those politicians when they couldn't even pass a budget. We've had a democracy for 200 years, and they weren't able to pass a budget this year. It's the latest that a budget's ever been passed, and now they're pointing the finger at politicians in a democracy that's 3 years old max. Well, those folks are getting their act together, and we're giving them the breathing space to do so, and we're going to be successful. We're going to honor the sacrifice of our troops, and we're going to help the Iraqis be successful.
How do you define success? What is the successful outcome in Iraq?
The successful outcome in Iraq is a stable government that has their own standing army, their own police force that's able to protect their people from internal enemies and external enemies. That is success.
This is your second run for Congress.
Yes.
Why should the people of the 5th District send you to Capitol Hill and send Emmanuel Cleaver back to Kansas City?
Well, it's pretty simple. I've lived my life outside of politics, and just to give you a little background on me, I've been married to my wonderful wife, Donna, for over 5 years now. I have 3 grown children, 2 of the cutest little grandsons you ever saw. I am a Marine veteran, and I had my own small business for over 12 years. I've worked for corporations, and I've just been a regular taxpayer. I've lived my life outside the political arena. We need that kind of voice in Congress, because as long as we keep hiring career politicians, we're going to keep getting the same results, and nobody is happy with the status quo. They stop, at some point in their career, they just stop listening to us, and that's what's happened here. So I want to bring the voice of the common man to Congress.
We've got about 30 seconds left. You ran in 2006. What's going to be different in 2008 from the 2006 campaign?
In 2006, there was a Republican-controlled Congress, and people were unhappy with it, and rightly so. And so it was anybody but a Republican. So we were fighting just gale force winds in our face. Well, now the presidential election has brought excitement because we have a couple of candidates that haven't been on the national scene before. We have Obama and we have Mike Huckabee. And that's exciting people. And so that means what people are looking for is they're looking for a change. They don't want just the same career politicians with the same message. And that's what we bring to the table. We bring the voice of the common folks to this campaign against a career politician. And so that's what the folks are looking for. The wind's at our back. We will be successful this time.
Jacob, thank you for being here in Grandview, and thank you for watching Missouri Viewpoints. Tune back in next week with an interview with State Representative Mike Talboy from Kansas City.